PA here, talking about the PPP, the Paycheck Protection Program, filing for forgiveness for the PPP. And I've done some videos here recently. For those that have tuned in, thank you. Thank you for all of you that are subscribers. If you're not one, consider it. Turn on the notifications. I'm trying to put out videos in real time, and as I see questions and concerns pop up, not only from you, the viewers, in the comments section, it gives me ideas of what I may produce other videos on, as well as keeping up with how this is progressing. So the biggest question I'm getting as it relates to PPP filing for forgiveness is, well, JJ, you're saying to wait. So when should we file? When are you telling your clients to file? So I've touched on it, I felt like, the other video, so I thought I would just be direct in this one. And what I'm planning to do for myself and for my clients is apply after the first of the year. And I've got my reasons why, and I'm going to share them with you. I've got the type of clients I'm working with that makes sense for them. So it may not make sense for you. You can check out my other videos where I explain in those why I think you should wait. But in this video, I'm telling you the reason, and that is this. We know that if you receive PPP and you use it accordingly, meaning to get forgiveness, whatever is forgiven, you have to reduce down those expenses. And in essence, even though PPP is not income, it says it in the CARES Act, it's not income. But when you reduce down your tax deductible expenses, in essence, it's a backdoor way of kind of being income, so to speak. So I'm reporting it on my clients as a contra expense, meaning a opposite expense, a negative expense. I'm putting it on their P&L, but down below the line in the other expense. So yes, it sticks out like a negative expense, but that way the P&L for my clients were able to go, well, here's all of your actual income, here's all of your actual expenses, but then we know that we're going to have this adjustment of a reduction in those expenses. And so the reason to wait until after the first of the year is a pure, I'm hedging my bets on two things. I'm hedging my bet first on, unless the IRS addresses this, which I think they may, but until they do, I'm hedging my bets. I'm trying to think about it full circle here. I'm not just looking at just forgiveness only. I'm trying to look at a total picture here. But what year you actually reduce down your expenses, the way that it's written now, is in the year that it is forgiven. So if it's forgiven next year, then I've potentially helped my client kick that can down kick that adjustment into next year. Okay. Now, you may have a set of circumstances that it may not make sense for you to do that. I'll talk about that at the end. So my point is that for most of my clients, and including me, I like to kick the can. I'm a kick the can kind of CPA. We pull expense into this year, we push income to next year. That's usually the rule of thumb. It's just how I roll. You may not. You may have a different set of circumstances. You have to remember, as a CPA, I'm working with a very specific type of client, which is an S Corp owner that's specifically involved in their business. I don't work with a ton of Schedule C filers because I don't believe in Schedule C. I think you should be an S Corp. And the only partnerships I'm working with, the client of mine is passive in it. They're not actively involved. It owns real estate. So you have to keep in mind, when I'm providing advice, in this video specifically, I'm sharing with you what I'm sharing with my clients. I'm trying to give you a little bit of background. So you may find some contrast. Now, here's the other part, though. I also think, though, by applying next year, first of the year, and then getting a forgiveness next year, I absolutely believe, though, I would have the option, unless the IRS rules on this differently, which they haven't and they may, but I believe I absolutely, under current conditions, the way that it's currently written, that I would have the option to potentially reduce it in 2020 or 2021. The argument would be, absent anything further from the IRS, is that, well, those expenses were incurred and paid in 2020. So to me, it's logical that if need be, those expenses would be reduced in 2020, and or I could follow the way that it's written as well, because it's open to interpretation. That's what you have to remember about tax law. It's open to interpretation, which you may have a different one. Your professionals may have a different one. But I also think that I could elect to also have it in 2021 saying, well, but this was the year of forgiveness. That is how it's written. So with my clients that are cash basis, they're S Corp owners, I think that for the Schedule C, it really doesn't matter, because under current conditions, it's not taxable to the Schedule C filer because it's just representing its net income. So I've got 2 videos that I did yesterday that are talking about taxable effects of PPP for employers as well as the Schedule C filers. So I do want you to take a look at that. Doug had a great question and indicated that if you have a Schedule C filer that has employees, how does that work? So briefly, for Schedule C filers that are also paying employees a W-2 wage, well, you have both circumstances. So you'd watch both the videos I did yesterday on the taxable effect of PPP, because as it relates to the employer, just because you're a Schedule C filer, you have to follow suit of how it works as an employer. And as an employer, you have to reduce down any expenses that you're able to deduct for what gets forgiven. If you also have a Schedule C on the net of your Schedule C, that doesn't apply. So the thing to know here is that you would have to watch both of the videos on that. So with that being said, the second reason to push it to next year is really down to, is Congress going to override this whole set of circumstances as it relates to the tax effect of PPP? So I'm not going to repeat what I put in the other 2 videos on the taxation of it. I'd like for you to go and watch those. But the thing to note is that the CARES Act indicated that it's not income. The IRS interpreted, though, any forgiveness amount will reduce down the expenses that PPP was used for. And the reason that the IRS did that is that that's been the case since the beginning of time as it relates to federal grants. So IRS has to follow suit. They weren't necessarily making a determination only about the Paycheck Protection Program. They were making a decision, and they're having to follow precedent. They're having to follow law. And a big hint to this is that the IRS indicated at the end of its interpretation that it would require an act of Congress. They literally said that. I know many people will say that jokingly, but they literally said, because it's what they meant, it will require an act of Congress to change the IRS's interpretation. So my thinking is that once we get into tax season, meaning we get into January, February, March, April of 2021, and we have S Corps and partnerships and C Corps filing tax returns for 2020, and this still seems to be an issue that is overlooked, meaning people aren't necessarily taking into account that they will have to reduce down their expenses for 2020. So there's going to be potentially a big, bucket of ice cold water splashed on to that taxpayer when they realize that whatever they were counting on their net income to be is affected by PPP forgiveness. Meaning, if you take $100,000 of income and you have $50,000 in expenses, and let's just say for this example, they're all payroll. I understand it's not realistic, but go with me for the simplistic example. So they have $100,000 in revenue in 2020. They have $50,000 in payroll. And again, to simplify this, let's just assume that the entire payroll was paid by PPP in the covered period, et cetera, and it was all forgiven. Well, that taxpayer may be thinking that their net income for tax purposes is a net 50 grand, right? 100 grand of income, 50,000 of expenses. But in reality, they would have to reduce down the 50,000 because in this example, it's all gotten forgiven. So their net income is $100,000, meaning they didn't have any expenses in this very simple example. We know that most businesses are going to have other expenses, but follow me on that simple example. Well, that's a massive slap. Okay, and I don't even mean disrespectful. I just mean like what? Like a wake-up slap. Because most likely that individual wasn't counting on paying tax on a net 100 grand. Here's the other rub on this, is that And I remember I was talking with somebody that, if you're watching, had a cupcake shop somewhere in the U.S., and they were indicating that really where they stood is about break even. And when I was consulting with them, because I have a phone consultation that you can go to on my website, jjthecpa.com, you can schedule a time to consult with me. But anyways, when I was consulting with them, I said, hey, by the way, we were talking about a different subject, but by the way, remember that PPP, whatever gets forgiven, is going to reduce down your expenses. So if memory serves, this individual or this business got $80,000 in PPP. So if that $80,000 gets all forgiven, while they were projecting to be at break even for tax purposes, break even meaning net zero, right? Net zero income. I said, well, in these circumstances, you may be net zero, but once you adjust for the reduction of this $80,000 in PPP forgiveness, you're going to have net income of $80,000. And so you're going to owe tax in essence. So yes, it sounds totally like what? So you got to watch my other two videos where I really walk through that. My point is that by applying after the first of the year, maybe I'm able to have my clients still in the process of forgiveness, right? Follow me? That we wouldn't even know how to adjust for April on purpose. We may plan for the adjustment, but I'm hoping that if my clients are in those circumstances, that we would not have to then make that adjustment potentially at all. So I'm giving my client, I'm giving myself every option as I see it. Okay. Now, if you're a Schedule C filer and you filed a Schedule C with your PPP, which is the same as what you filed with the IRS, and you're now putting in for PPP forgiveness, you're using the S form, and you're arriving at obviously full forgiveness. If you go through the examples, I've got other videos on how that calculation works. So you'll need to look, I've got playlists for specific self-employed. My point is that, then maybe you go ahead and file if you want, okay? Part of the video where I talked earlier about just wait is that you have 10 months from the end of your covered period to file. So what's the hurry? And the number one thing is I'm still finding, even though I've got a few people that are commenting and say, hey, I already put it in and got full forgiveness, which is great. The only reason for that, especially for those that are now coming back with a question of, well, my bank's asking for this, is that right? Or my bank's saying I have to provide something showing I had paid myself. This is for self-employed here, Schedule C filer. My comment back is, man, just wait, because the banks haven't caught up with the reality of how this works for the self-employed. So if you're getting hassled, wait, because at that bank, the wheels haven't been greased enough to let you just be the beneficiary of the bank going through all the first people to jump off this cliff and figure out how the forgiveness works. So if you have a bank and it seems like they're making it work and it's simple and it's easy, okay. But even here in Oklahoma, the banks that I'm working with, the specific 3, they're telling their clients the same thing. We want to wait because there's only advantage in waiting. Okay. So financial advisors are saying the same. So if you feel you should apply, then just do it. I know that some have tried to come up with reasoning, which I appreciate. Well, shouldn't I go ahead and apply now because of this, this, and this? Yeah. If my client calls me and says, well, shouldn't I apply for this, this, and this? I'm going to say, well, you could, but I don't recommend that you do. So the 2 clients that have kind of, tried to, go about it alone, so to speak, both of them had the banks come back and ask for goofy things. They're not with one of the 3 banks that I'm closely working with. And I said, hey, you know what? This is why we're going to wait. You just need to tell the bank, hey, you know what? We're going to put it on hold. So at the end of the day, I'm sharing, when am I telling my clients, but why? So that's what this video is all about. So I'm just giving you my opinion, and I'm giving you what I'm telling my clients. You can either apply it to your situation or not. Is there a disadvantage to applying for forgiveness now? Well, the disadvantage is all the things that I'm telling you that I'm hedging my bets on. So at the end of the day, here's where I'm at though, okay? I think there's probably a 25% chance that Congress actually says this won't have a tax effect. I think it's a 25% chance that Congress says, no, IRS, you will not reduce down expenses for what gets forgiven. Okay. The second is, I don't think there'll be a automatic, complete write-off of the PPP under 150,000 or even under the 50. I think there's a possibility that anything under 25,000, because that scoops up most self-employed individuals, where there would just be like, you know what, just sign here and hand it in. And so for the clients that have the low amount, it's like, well, why wouldn't we just wait for that? You know, why wouldn't we just wait for that? Make it simpler, make it easy. You don't even have to show anything. You just, here it is, I'm done. Then also from the standpoint of giving option of, well, what year do we want this? Because if the forgiveness happens this year, we don't have an opportunity to potentially kick the can into 2021. So I feel strongly that I can teeter it. I'm hedging my bets. I see zero issue in waiting in any way, shape, or form. The other aspect is then the client can for sure experience the full 24 weeks, because when you're putting in your application for forgiveness, you're just saying, here's the payroll that I had during my covered period that was paid and incurred during the covered period. Full 24 weeks. You just include it. Same thing with rent and the interest and the utilities. So for my clients, they're going to have a massive amount. They're going to have this much of expense with probably this much of PPP. So that's going to also just fly right through the bank, fly right through the SBA. Why are they going to come and challenge anything? Not that that's the only reason, but it saves time and effort for me and my clients if we have an abundance of that. The other aspect is, I know many say, well, why 8 weeks and 24 and all that? By the way, with the Flexibility Act, you're automatically 24 week. You have to actually elect to be an 8 week, which is only on the main form and the EZ. There's nowhere on the S that you indicate that. The 24 is just a no-brainer. For those that have asked about, well, wouldn't I want to have 8 week because I got unemployment? No, because the PPP is only for the self-employed, only for those that have payroll, et cetera, for a period of 2.5 months at best, 8 weeks at best for the self-employed, because that was the intent of it. Just because you're electing 24 weeks, see, there's a huge difference there. Just because you're electing 24 week doesn't mean it's supposed to last 24 weeks. All the election mean is you now have 24 weeks to spend it, which is really meant for the employers. For the self-employed Schedule C filer that doesn't have any employees, okay, or at least just on that net, it doesn't, the 8 and the 24 literally have no bearing. Once the Flexibility Act came into play in June, when you look at the updated guidelines that have come out and further and more, even down to new guidelines that have come out in the last couple of weeks, for the self-employed, okay, the 8 and the 24 week have no bearing on it because it's simply a calculation. It's 2019 Schedule C, line 31, divided by 12 times 2.5. It just is. So those states, there couldn't be but maybe 2. Those states that maybe PPP was thought to affect unemployment, hasn't. But here's the other thing. For those that have gotten PPP right now, okay, and you're getting unemployment, I don't think you've got any issues because the CARES Act said PPP is not income, period, the end. PPP forgiveness is not income. So maybe there's a state, maybe, that wants to know about your PPP when it gets to unemployment. And all I can say to those that are still concerned about the 8 and the 24 week, I can't keep arguing with you. I just can't. You're just going to have to go your own gut on it. If your state's not asking you specifically about it, the SBA even indicated if the state is indicating that it affects it, then it affects it. So if your state didn't actually ask you about it, then it doesn't affect it, and you're just going to have to make your own decision on it, because unemployment issues are unfortunately different state to state to state. And I've contended that from the beginning. So basically, probably a little bit of an update here as it relates to this. So since it kind of turned into that, I'll just add that I do still feel it is October 28th. It's October 28th. I still feel very strongly there's going to be PPP2 because Republicans, Democrats, the Senate, the House, the White House all feel that there needs to be PPP2. And I understand that many feel the election, it changes everything. But, remember, it doesn't change anything until January 20th. So we still have all the same parties involved. And I think everybody knows, should be, there's no way that this country can wait until after January 20th for PPP, stimulus checks, and additional unemployment. So I do feel like all of those things will still come about, probably when the election is over, which may not actually even be on Tuesday, November 3rd. But in essence, once it's over and everybody kind of settles down from that, then really no one's gaining any true political favor. No one's seeing that they're giving somebody else political favor by doing any of this stimulus. It's kind of like everybody playing chicken when it comes to this. There's no reason to do that anymore because there's no election. It happened. We're in a lame duck session, which just means also for those that didn't get reelected, it's kind of lame duck in the sense of like, I don't know that they would care the same, not saying they don't care. All I'm saying, and I'm not trying to get political. So, if you've made it to here, I don't really need your political statements because I'm not trying to be political. What gets a little frustrating when I'm talking about these issues, and I'm now talking about PPP2, is that people take it that I'm trying to talk politics. So I'll close it with this. Do vote on Tuesday. It does make a difference, okay? Especially with PPP, the stimulus, and the unemployment. While we can look to the president, and maybe some still want to hold him responsible, and this isn't a pro-Trump statement, it's just a reality about the president. It's a reality back to fifth grade, governmental class. The president can simply just sign whatever he's been presented, he or she. So yes, the White House is a part of the negotiation, and will I sign this and will I won't, blah, 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 blah. All I'm saying is that it is more important that you really pay close attention to what your senator is doing currently, what your U.S. representative is doing currently. Like, what are they doing right now? Literally right now, what are they doing? Well, they're certainly not chaining themselves to their desk in the House or the Senate saying, we're not leaving until we have PPP. Okay? Now, I'm not blaming anybody, but I've contended from the beginning that even if you're a Republican and you have a Republican senator, if that senator's up for election and they're not doing anything for you that you think needs to be done, maybe you should consider not voting for them. That's all I'm saying. And I'm trying to just prove to you that I'm not trying to be political here. I'm just saying, if you think you need stimulus and your senator, your state, or your U.S. House representative is not doing that, then consider not voting for them. Or maybe you do. There's a lot of issues to it. So all I'm saying is pay attention more to the local, to the state, like what's going on with those that are representing you in Washington. Yes, it's going to be important who is the president of the United States next, obviously. But many, many, many rest, I think, too much on, I'm going to vote for this president. It's going to solve everything, or it's going to correct everything, or it'll continue, or whatever. Maybe, okay? Yeah, the president has a lot of involvement. So I'm not talking Trump, Pelosi, McConnell, okay? I'm not. And if you want to throw me in that corner, I'll probably consider blocking you from my channel. But from the standpoint of this, the point here, ladies and gentlemen, is vote for who you think is going to represent you best, and pay attention to the House and the Senate is where I'm getting on that. So I've had a few behind the scenes emails and interactions that have all proved to be very positive. But at the end of the day, if you go back and look at my playlist, I think other than my video that I have where I show Rubio on the Senate floor, I've taken down any of the stuff. I believe I've taken down any of the stuff talking about Trump's taxes because everybody thought that was political. I've taken down the one where I was live in front of Pelosi's office. Just, some people took it completely opposite than what I thought. And then I think I even put up the full clip of Pelosi. Maybe I left that up. Anyways, here's the deal. If you think I'm being political and you want to come after me politically, and you're going to go ahead and put it in the comments, just know I have a decision too who gets to see my stuff. And when I get to make that decision is when you leave me a comment. So when you leave me a comment and you somehow blast me personally about politics, I'm going to unsubscribe you, and actually a step further, I'm going to block you from my channel. Now, you want to voice who you like, you want to voice who you hate. As long as you're not getting personal with me, I don't care about that. I mean, you can voice what your opinion is. I rarely delete comments, rarely. The comments that I delete and the people that I block are those that say something personally about me, personally against me, even if it's beyond politics. All right, hey, so you'll see today I had a very short video, and then this one is very long. So for those of you that don't like the long videos, then all I can say to you is just when you start the video, check out how long it is. And if you don't like long videos, it's okay not to watch it. And then for those that feel like my videos need to be longer, then watch the longer ones. So you can tell this, we've been in an ice storm. We haven't had any power, and actually it just came back on. It's been flickering back on and off. And so maybe I'm just feeling a little edgy, but you got to remember, I'm just a human being. I mean, even though I'm on YouTube and I'm putting out information, it is for free. You might have to watch a 5-second, ad or something like that, but it is just for free. And I'm a certified public accountant. I'm trying to put out the best information that I can. I'm trying not to come with any angle other than to be helpful. And so, I take it personal when someone says something personal to me, because I'm not saying anything personal about anybody on this. I'm not directing it to any one person. I don't think if I've ever had a video where I complained about the Republicans, I complained about the Democrats. If I complained about the Democrats, I complained about the Republicans. If I complained about Pelosi, I complained about McConnell. If I complained about McConnell, I complained about Trump. If you go back and you watch all my videos, I've complained about everybody. So you may have not watched all your videos, but I'm sure the heck I'm the one that recorded all of my videos. And I know without a shadow of a doubt, I've complained about everybody. And to prove my point, there are those that think I'm of one party, and it baffles me that they would think that. There's others that think I'm of this party, and they think... Anyways, I think I've done a really good job, because for some of those that are heavy on one side and thought I was heavy on the other side, it's like, well, I guess I've done my job, because you're completely off base. All that being said is this. Thanks for tuning in. I'd love it if you subscribe. This is all, as now I would consider a good friend would say, is it's one man's opinion. All right. So anyways, at the end of the day, I love you. If you made it to here, hopefully you like the stuff I'm putting out. Check out my playlists, and then don't you ever forget, you've never met a CPA quite like me. All right, hey, have a great day, and thanks for listening. And I sincerely mean this. Get the help that you need, and I'm happy to help as best as I can.